All right, it's your boy Kamal Hart on the chart, and it's December 31st, the last day of the decade and 2019. So we're gonna hop right into it. Um, Off these highs, kind of have a double top, a lower high, and a leg down. So I'm going to be looking to see a micro trend here, and let's go ahead and get those numbered candles off the screen so we can't see what's coming up. Just like that. Cool. So right here we get the failed second entry. The only issue I have with this one is that there's really not enough room to that low, and it makes it a little risky taking that. I skipped that trade. Would have worked, but it pulls back pretty quick. And then here you kind of get that reset pattern, but that signal bar isn't that great. It's good, but it's really not that great. So I'm still gonna wait for a better entry there. That one takes off though, but it's all good. At this point, let's go ahead and measure leg one, and leg two gives us a target somewhere way down there. So we push down pretty strong, starting to get some stack up right there. Right there, see how we got that congestion right as we got to that measured move. That's a good sign. And we're still pushing down. It's too risky to sell while it's at the lows. So we need to wait for some sort of pullback and second entry short, something like that. So we're just waiting it out for now. Here's the pullback that we're talking about. We get a strong move higher. And at this point, even though we've pushed past the EMA, we haven't made a swing past a higher swing. See how none of these broke above? So that's not really a swing point. And we haven't made a higher low either. So at this point, we're just kind of waiting to see where the market will go. It took a while for the market to decide what it was doing today. So right there, we get this first little pullback. So now if we push above, I'm going to give that a micro trend. And right there, see how we went above? That's going to be my micro trend right there. So I'd have something right there. And so you can see it on the other side. Have something like that. We get a nice push off that line. Here's the a failed second entry short from this low. First push down. That's the second push down. The only issue with this is that it's outside of the trend, and we're not off that EMA very much. So it's kind of like it's floating. Makes it a little aggressive. I traded my sim accounts today, so I ended up going long one tick above that bar. But here's an interesting sign, right? Is it looks pretty obvious now, but as our rules say, on the failed second entry trades, when that bar breaks above, it has to close above the trigger bar or the signal bar. So when this triggered and then closed back inside of the signal, that's the first sign that this trade isn't going to work. So ideally, you want to exit with a plus one stop. I'm going to put the do not disturb on. You want to exit with a plus one stop, but it just didn't. I couldn't get the plus one stop. You know, I was a little bit too slow on the gun, and you know, honestly, because I entered on a stop, if I had entered on a limit, I would have easily gotten that plus one. But because I had a stop, I couldn't actually exit on plus one. So I just tightened my stop one tick below the signal bar, and when it ticked below, it ticked me out. It's a little frustrating that it ticked below and then reversed, You know, that tends to happen, but it's okay. It's a small loss. And then right here, you get a second entry long off this high. It's still a little aggressive, but that's kind of the reset pattern that we want to see, especially when this trade failed. Then you get the second entry here. That's a good trade. So you'd want to buy there. I was trading another chart at that point, so I didn't really get to enter this, but that would have been a good trade. And that one gives you a nice push. But what you need to be careful of, especially on this pullback, is that we had a move up, a break outside, and a move to a new high. So prices could reverse at any moment. So I would not hold your runner longer than you need to, just to be safe. And then right there, when you get that little swing, once prices move below that swing, that's another place to exit your runner trade. And then of course you're going to have a exit at break even +1. Might have been right there. So now we're just waiting to see if really we can give that a micro trend, because there's a lower high after a breakout move to a new high. But we really want to see prices close below this EMA or swing below these swings to really give it confidence. And then here you get a failed second entry long, because it broke higher there, it fails. Break higher again, it fails. But this bar is inside of that bar, which is inside of that bar. That's a little bit of congestion, and you would have to sell the breakout, which isn't a great idea, especially since it's going right into that EMA. It's a little too risky in most scenarios, so I would skip that trade. It works, but that's okay. So since we have this congestion, I'm going to look for a sort of like a pullback entry, and then I'm going to redo these lines based off of that pullback, maybe based off of there. See right there, you kind of get that pullback. So I'd probably get a line going right off there. Let's see how that fits on the low side. Only one touch, so that's not valid yet on the low side. So we'll just wait and see. See, but it touched and then bounced. It's a good sign. So we're getting that breakout. Let's see if we get a second entry short or some sort of trade going short. This is a really nice signal bar. It's not a technical setup. Maybe it's a breakout pullback from this congestion area. That's a little too aggressive for me. It's another one I'm going to skip. And you see how it starts to stack up like that? That's a sign of some congestion. So let's get our lines down there like that. And then here you get the like a second entry short. It's a little bit not in our strategy because prices are moving sideways. The signal bar became, well, the signal bar is this green bar, and the trigger bar broke below. So it's not really a good setup. Once again, same thing as up here. You're selling the breakout. It's super close to being a good trade. I would say it's aggressive to take this trade. But if you're seeing the second entry short off this low, first entry, second entry, you might enter this trade, maybe just size down your contracts so you're not taking too much risk. This isn't a place to go in on full size because it's not really a clean setup. Takes it a little bit, but then it shoots off there, and that ends up being a pretty nice trade. Of course, we can just measure the first leg 1 and then see where we get, and this would be our target for our swing leg 2. So get that pullback. That's that first entry to the low. Keeps going. So at this point here, if you look carefully, we have these matching tops, so that can act as a new high. So this is the first lower high off these matching tops. And then since we're kind of moving off this EMA again, I'm going to look to find a trend line maybe off there. It's not very clean, but you get 3 touches on the lows. And then if you bring that up to the highs, there's a mild breakout, but that's not a convincing break, so I'm okay with that. And as it moves down, we're just waiting. The only trade I'm going to be looking for while it's down here is like the failed second entry long or something, but it's going to have to be a good setup. And once again, you can see that, you know, this one opens and closes inside of this one, which opens and closes inside of this one. So we're getting these kind of like micro congestion areas all over the chart. Just got to be really careful about selling the breakouts on those. So we're just waiting. And then right there is the failed second entry, right, off this double top. Off that double top. But I entered this trade, but let's look at this carefully, because right there, it opens and closes inside of this bar, which opens and closes inside of that bar. So what we could really do is just extend this range like that. And so pretty much I sold the breakout there. So once I realized, and in fact I entered on a stop, which was an accident, but once I realized that it was kind of a selling of the breakout of these 3 congestion bars, I just exited one tick. I just immediately got out. I was real quick on that one. And it pushes lower, and then it reverses, and it doesn't take long. So that would have been a trade to skip. And then right there, if you weren't quick enough to exit on that, you probably would have taken a loss on that trade. So pretty much at this point, we have our trend. It's a breakout right there. I entered on a short, but when I was trading this, the price action looked a little different, and this was actually a second entry short, and had a really good signal bar. When I refreshed my chart, it doesn't look as good anymore, but that's just how it goes sometimes. So I entered short there. At the time, I had a little bit of a better trend line even. My trend line at the time was going off these 2 closes, and then that was the first touch. Here, I'll just redo the lines, because that's what really got me into this trade, because it was off the EMA, off the trend line. It was a second entry short, and you can still see how if I tighten up this line, I still get 3 touches off the lows. Touch there, and a touch there. So you still end up in the same place, but it just gives you a little bit more room and confidence to take that trade. And what I did on that trade, since it was such a good setup at the time, I actually entered on 3 contracts because it was a good setup. So I had a pretty big order right there. That's our midline. So boom, short right there, pushed down a little bit. I was able to exit on my scalps. I had to ride out the pullback. My stop is 1 tick above this bar, and then it turned back down, and I was just holding it to the lows. I just wanted to see if we'd come test the lows, but I had to go somewhere today, so I couldn't wait to see it finish. And rule of thumb, if you close your computer while you're in a trade, it will probably skip your order. So if the market reverses while your computer is closed, you're going to be in that trade until the end of the day. And sometimes those can be catastrophic losses. So if you have to leave, just exit your trade. Don't Don't close your computer or something like that because it can be really devastating. But what I see now is a second entry short off this bar. So if you look off this low, nothing breaks below. That's the first break below. It pulls back. That's the second break below when it breaks below here. That's a really strong sell bar. There's room to the lows. I'd go short there. So that's the nice thing about price action. Even though where I entered, it doesn't look good anymore, you would have got a very similar entry just a few bars later. So it wouldn't have made a difference. And that one shoots off. So yeah, that's where I exited my runner because I didn't have time to wait. So that one hits the lows. You would have easily gotten your scalp and your swing with no heat. So now we're just waiting. We get a really big push up. And so that's interesting, right? Because when we get a move like this, that earlier trend we had this being more of a breakout. And that could possibly been the correct trend channel because that would have made it like a breakout, move to a new low, reversal. So that's just something to think about, is that different trend lines will get you in at different places, but that old one kind of had to break, move to a new low, and that's kind of a good sign. But at this point, we have to respect that because we started below the EMA, we're closing above the EMA, and we're closing above previous swings. So we have to respect this uptrend now and see if it gives us any setups we can buy. So we get a pullback. This is a lower high, but once again, it's like an engulfing lower high. I don't like taking engulfing lower highs. They're not super reliable. So, and once again, back to this idea of like, this is our bear micro trend. So none of these shorts make sense until we get a reversal pattern. I'm not even trying to go short. So I'd have to wait on that. And see, if you would have sold that, you would have got trapped. And then it pounces right back down. You know, it's kind of going sideways at this point. So just wait on your hands for a little bit. Right here's a second entry long off this high, but it's an inside trigger bar. It's not that great. It's aggressive, but I wouldn't risk it. I would just wait. Never breaks above, so no worries. Here's your reversal pattern. Let's see, this bar inside of that bar inside of that bar. So let's get this charted. So I'm really going to play the range first because the range happened before the reversal pattern. And that's basically selling the breakout again. So it's really tempting to go short there. A lot of room to the lows, but if we're playing the range, it's not a great place to go short. And then once again, let's say you did enter this trade. Once this next bar breaks below and then closes inside of the, this is an interesting setup because it's like a trigger bar and a signal bar because it's an engulfing bar. So what I do for engulfing bars on the failed second entries is I also look for the next bar after the engulfing bar. Let me see, do I have another example? So like on this example, see how that's my signal bar and then my trigger bar is this next candle and that candle closes inside? That works like normal. But when it's an engulfing bar, this is both your signal and your trigger. And you have to wait for the next bar to break below. And if that next bar that breaks below closes back inside, that's when you should probably tighten your stop and see if you can exit, you know, break even +1 if it'll give it to you. And it doesn't. So, you know, best case scenarios, you got out of there quickly. You're definitely not trying to hold it past the range or something like that. That's not the move. Really strong signal bar at the highs of the range. It's just a first entry to the lows. It's going right into that EMA. There's nothing really there. Never breaks below, so it's all good. Here it breaks below, but that's your signal bar now. That doesn't look good. That's an easy one to avoid. Inside bar, we're waiting. This one is tempting, but once again, inside of that bar, inside of that bar, and inside of that bar. So it's just too sideways. And once again, you're going right into that EMA like that. Not a good place to go short. Never breaks below, so the price structure saves you on that one. It never breaks below, so you wouldn't have gotten trapped regardless. Another setup, but once again, it's just I would probably walk away at this point. It's getting too noisy. Got the little break below, and then here is a kind of interesting like breakout pullback, because once again we still have this big leg and everything's closing above the EMA. You see how we're making higher lows. A little aggressive, but would I go long there? It's a nice signal bar, and if we're going to retest this high, there's plenty of room. Let's see if that works out. So let's say that if I did enter this trade and then see how it broke above, then closed back inside, I'm basically looking to scratch this trade right now because I used a failed second entry. But a key thing to know with second entries is that they're not a good trade to take at the top of the range. I forgot that. It's not really a good place to take a failed second entry. Although I was kind of using the breakout pullback rules, but you can see how this is really sideways. So once it closed back inside, I'm just going to have it at break even or break even plus one, try to exit. You would easily exit it. And in fact, it works this time, but you know, just over here it didn't work. So I wouldn't get too confident just because it worked this time. And you know, you would have made money on that, but just follow your rules. You'll be better off. So now that we've bounced off this trend line a couple times, I'm gonna see this as a like maybe a channel going through here. Let's see if we can get a channel. I'm on the East Coast today, so we're gonna end at 3 o'clock today instead of 12 like normal, in case you were wondering. So we got a little channel going up through there. Let's see if we can get some sort of like second entry long, something we can use. Here's just a nice signal bar, first entry to the high. It's really nothing we can take off that. It's pushing up. That's kind of a breakout side too. Maybe our channel needs to be a little flatter. I could see that could be the case. Maybe our channel is a little bit more like that. And actually, you know, that is a good point, because when we're in a range, I want to use the breakout pullback as my range starting point. So like I should have started the range from here. So let's see if that fits better. If I just bring it to these lows. Yeah, you see how that fits a lot nicer? That's the better way to chart when it breaks out from a range. So use the breakout pullback. Don't use the lows, because it gets a little bit distorted in the range because it moves sideways. So that's what we're looking for. See how that turns perfectly off that part? That's a good sign. That's our first entry. Ooh, there's the second entry, but it's one tick from the current, you know, highs. It's going to be a little aggressive taking that, you know. And honestly, let's see what time it is. Yeah, that's 3:12. So I wouldn't even bother taking that trade. A couple trades today. It wasn't too popping. But if you caught any one of these trades, you definitely got a runner and you got some nice movement. But I don't know. I wouldn't really fool with that unless you just really want to be aggressive, and it works, but it's just too close to these double tops. It's kind of risky. That's pretty much all I saw today. I guess it's the day before New Year's, so there's a lot of movement, but there just wasn't a lot of setups that we could really use for trades. So that's pretty much all there is today. So it's been a great year. We're gonna be back to do it again in 2020. We're gonna do it bigger and better in 2020. There'll be more videos, and I'll try to be more detailed in certain explanations, but it takes a lot of time to explain all of these nuances on the chart, and sometimes I feel like I'm just repeating myself over and over. But whenever I see something new, I'll definitely break down any new ideas that I have. So, man, closing out the year, this is a grind, this is a hustle. It takes a lot of time to be consistent with this, but if you study these candles and focus on doing the right thing as many times as you can, there's definitely there's a light at the end of the tunnel. So that's all I got for you today. I'll be back in 2020 to do it again. See y'all.